Oh, by the way, I am MK. This is Question with Over. And I'm here with Craig Ballard. Craig, as you can tell, is a big hockey fan. Let's start right there. So Craig is so you guys know. Everybody knows I do NBA, NFL. That's what I'm fluent in. Hockey and baseball, yeah, not. I can say I'm a casual. So Craig is my baseball expert, and I want to start with what this. I like this. What is this? Tell me what this is. Where did that come from?
Man, just a signature to have, I guess. Buddies all throughout my life, when we're at a big sporting event or we've made a big pick on something or something sports is going on, they'll always, give my head a little rub for good luck. It was just like a joke that we had that sort of idea. So it's like almost like a nod to my past, to my buddies, and almost into like a salute, like almost saluting you to say the hello as well. So that's all. Just sort of my calling card, I guess.
Because that was the first thing I noticed when I saw your first video, and it was like I forget what the last thing you said was, and then you went, and I was like, oh, I like that. It's catchy because you never know. Like I do that now. You're more fluent, and I thought, is anyone gonna like that?
Oh, love it.
Yeah, they love it. So I'm like, okay, I got one that works. So what we're gonna do for everyone who's watching, for you, so we're gonna go through baseball because obviously the Jays have made the playoffs. So we're gonna talk about what that looks like, their chances in making the World Series, just so you know. Mrs. Fluent, she's a bit of a gambler. And she put some money on the Jays winning the World Series at the beginning of the season. There's pretty good odds. So last year, I just got to start listening to her. She put money on, now granted, she's a Bengals fan, put money on the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. And when they made it, there was, I don't know if you know, like DraftKings will give you a payout. They're like, hey, they made it. Do you want to do this or do you want to let it ride? Anyways, that's a story for another day. So we're hoping the Jays get there because we'll cash out this time when they're there. We're not going to let it ride this time, which tells you what happened. Even though I said pull out. So let's start with the Jays. So we're going to talk about the Jays. We're going to talk a little bit about basketball because you and I have very differing opinions on basketball, and then we're going to go into making some picks for this week. So let's start with the Jays. How long has it been since they've made the playoffs?
So 2015 and 16, they made the playoffs both of those seasons. Now, prior to that, it was the 92-93 World Series champions. So from 93 to 2015, the Blue Jays did have the longest drought in North American sports. So NHL, Major League Baseball, NBA, or NFL had the longest drought of not making the playoffs. So that 2015 was a big deal to break that. That's what Seattle just did now. When the Jays made it in 2015, now the Seattle Mariners became the longest drought. Now they've just made the playoffs. They've just broke. I actually have to look in to see who the new fan base is. And it's different. If you're part of the fan base, Tom, I'm absolutely telling you, Anthony, I noticed it. That drought and it being the longest drought. If you're in that fan on the surface, maybe it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. If you're part of that fan base, man, it actually is a big deal.
So let me ask you a question. Did they make, because just shows how much little which is why I need you. They've added more wildcard teams. So back in like 91, 92, it was the division winners and one wildcard team, correct?
Not even.
It was just the division winners?
Okay. Or division.
And now in 2015, there was one wildcard or two?
Well, two wildcards that played each other in a one game, which is the stupidest thing in sports history. Okay. You play 162 games. You play 6 months, 162 game grind. You use upwards of 10, 15 starting pitchers. Now it comes down to one game where I need one starting pitcher to get hot. And that's the playoff experience that those fan base. Imagine being on that losing team. I remember one wild card game. I think it was the Texas Rangers. They hosted that wild card game, that playoff experience. So here's the playoff experience for the fans. They hosted the game. Texas scores one in the bottom of the first. They go on to lose 7-1. So that half inning, that was the playoff run experience for the Texas Rangers fan. That's so stupid, ridiculous. So now they've added another. So now there's a third wild card. So that now they have a best of 3 wild card series. It's still not perfect, but I think at least the case can be made that in a best of 3, at least some cream can rise to the top. You need to use multiple starters. You'll need to use guys off your bench. Like, it is significantly better than it has been in the past. Now, this is the first year that's ever been the case.
Okay.
But even in previous histories, because the Blue Jays earned the number 1 wild card.
They were the number 1, so they would have made it no matter what.
Exactly.
It's not like me moaning and groaning about the NBA where you play 82 games and now we're going to let the 9th and 10th seed have a shot at making the playoffs, which one game you get lucky, one guy gets hot, and that drives me nuts, by the way. But we'll move on. Okay, so the Jays are in. We don't know who they're playing, correct? Or we do know?
Seattle.
So they're playing Seattle?
Yeah, yes. They'll host Seattle Friday, Saturday, if necessary Sunday. Hopefully just Friday and Saturday. Let's just move on. Hopefully it's a quick 2-gamer. But yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And do they play home away, or home?
No, sir. All home. All home. That's the big advantage of winning that division.
So you get all 3 games at home.
All 3. And the third place, sorry, the division winner with the third best record, Cleveland Guardians in this case, they play the last place, the last wild card team that qualified, and Cleveland will host. That's Tampa Bay. Cleveland will host all 3 of those games as well.
Okay, and so chances against Seattle.
I really like it. I really like it a lot. Seattle has definite pitchers. Seattle took care of the Blue Jays this season. It's usually the Blue Jays doing well against Seattle, but that was all several months ago. The Seattle team has added Luis Castillo. So, like, this Seattle team has brought up Julio Rodriguez. They've improved since then. Case definitely could be made that the Blue Jays have improved since then as well. A lot of guys like Bo Bichette, Slim Daddy Vladdy, a lot of guys getting back to their potential. I'm not a big fan of that Seattle lineup. So I think our pitching can do very well against that lineup. Now, that Seattle pitching is very real. I mentioned they're bringing Luis Castillo. They'll start Robbie Ray game 1. Now, that's the cause for concern, because I don't know why, but the reason for this is that the Blue Jays just were awful against left-handed pitchers this season. 32 times a lefty started against the Blue Jays this season. Jays only won 12 of those games, and it doesn't make sense because all the good hitters are righty. Fluent. It doesn't make a lick of sense. So I am concerned with game 1. Of that series, because it'll be Robbie Ray, a lefty. Now, even if you drew Tampa Bay, it was going to be McClanahan. So either way, we were looking at a good lefty in game 1. So no matter what, we were going to have to be minding our P's and Q's. Jays were going into that series. But that's my only concern, is that game 1. For me, Fluent, and I know when I say this, you'll feel me here. We've been in the minority of sports opinions before, right? We watch so much sports over so many. I'm in the minority on this one. I don't even hear anybody bringing this up. Everybody talking about Alek Manoah for game 1. For me personally, I'm going Kevin Gausman game 1, and it's because of the issue the Jays have with lefties. If Man Mountain Manoah goes out in game 1 and throws an absolute gem, which of course he's capable of, he's a Cy Young contender, and the Jays lose that game because they're facing the lefty, where do you go now, Anthony? Where do you go? You're coming to that ballpark game 2. Now you have to win game 2 and 3. So you have to have a Kevin Gausman gem, and you have to follow that up with either a Barrios or Stripling gem. Man, that's nervous. If you go Gausman game 1, and even if Robbie Ray spins a gem, even if Gausman matches it, well, for whatever reason, Robbie Ray spins a gem, yet again, the Blue Jays lose to a lefty. We've got Alek Manoah coming back for game 2. We've got our ace, our stud for game 2 to right that ship. Manoah's going to give you a lot of innings, so that means it's going to save the bullpen. So now on Sunday, that winner take all now in this scenario, you've got a fresh bullpen, and it's all hands on deck. So I actually don't hear anybody talking about this at all, but I very much would go Gausman, Manoah, and then either Barrios or Stripling in game 3. And I know I'm in the minority there. But even if you win game 1, imagine the Blue Jays coming to that ballpark. Fluent, they'll be the most confident team in sports history coming to that ballpark on Saturday afternoon.
Come in with your Cy Young contending starting pitcher. Yeah.
Boom.
It's funny how the bats, this is what I do know. It's funny how the bats seem to be have a little bit more pop to them when you have your ace on the mound. I find that so interesting because I remember back when I used to watch baseball, I'm like, why is it when their best pitcher is pitching, they always seem to get more runs? There's a lot of reasons for that, but it's that confidence. I think that probably plays into it. So yeah, that's a really good point. And even if you lose, like you said, if you win, of course, you come into game 2 fully confident. But even if you lose, you're coming in saying, hey, we've got our ace now going up against them, so we should have a chance. I like it.
Zero panic going into
2. It's early. I know we're still haven't even started the wild card series, but what would you say are the Jays' chances of getting to the World Series? Because they got to go through American League's still tough, right? They got to go. Who would they have to go through, and what do you think their chances are?
So if you can run the gauntlet of Seattle's pitching, which honestly I think the Jays can again, because that Seattle offense just leaves so much to be desired. But then you're facing Houston. Houston, the definite odds-on favorite to win the American League. If you somehow get through Houston, yet now still the Yankees looming. Holy cow! 2 very real teams. Very real teams. It's going to be very difficult. the whole beggars can't be choosers, right? Fluent, like this is part of why it would really behoove the Blue Jays to sweep Seattle so they can have all their ducks in a row for that next series against Houston or New York. But man, I mean, you have to get there first. But it is not going to be easy. Now, if there is a team that can run that gauntlet, that Seattle pitching, then how good Houston is, then how good New York is. If there is that team in the American League, it is the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm a huge admirer of Tampa Bay. That Tampa Bay lineup doesn't have the same potential that the Blue Jay lineup has. 1 through 9, the Blue Jays have Whit Merrifield on fire right now. If you remember last year in September when the Jays made their huge run to get back into that race, it was all because that offense. In the 7 spot, you had Gurriel on fire. In the 9 spot, you had Danny Jansen on fire. So now you've got the George Springers, the Bows, the Slim Daddy Vlad. You got the top of the order doing their thing and the bottom of the order doing their thing. There's no place for a pitcher to maneuver to get a big out in a tough situation. They became unbeatable. Fast forward to right now, Danny Jansen again on absolute fire in that 9 spot. Whit Merrifield in that 7 or that 8 spot, giving that lineup length and depth. Very real, very real. And Blue Jay fans are about to see all 150 million reasons why George Springer was given 150 million US and out here, and for us in Canada, Tom, what's that, about 3.1 billion anyway? But we're going to see why George Springer was given that massive contract. He is one of the premier leadoff hitters in postseason baseball history. And I know that, yeah, Craig, they cheated in 27. I'm right there with you. I get it. But he was amazing in 2018, 2019, and 2020 as well. Like he did not fall flat on his face after that was all exposed. He did in 2 series to Tampa. Tampa killed him twice. That's what Tampa does. Tampa pitches the heck out of him. But in all the other series, he had OPSs over 1,000 in several of these other series, Tom. So trash cans or no trash cans, this guy has proven that he is massively legit when it comes to the playoffs. And having a player that's massively legit in the playoffs and having it be your leadoff hitter, I love that. I love that. Ambushing the opposition right out the gate, I love that.
I know I'm going back 30 years, but if memory serves me correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I know my memory doesn't always work, that was the strength of that 91, 92 Blue Jays, those back-to-back World Series champions. I remember their lineup, and you're like, I'm trying to think back. It was John Olerud, Dave Winfield, Paul Molitor. Like, it was just like hitter after hitter after hitter. They got two, don't get me wrong, from like Jack and I think Jack Morris was one of their pitchers, right? But I remember the offense. Joe Carter, I didn't even say Joe Carter, right? Robbie Alomar. There was just a bunch of guys who could hit, so you were never out of a game, right? Regardless of the other team's pitching, you always had that. Is that kind of the same kind of the same feeling you get from this lineup?
Well, anytime you're talking Blue Jays, I mean, I would love to talk old school Blue Jays with you, Anthony, under any circumstances. But yeah, that was Whamco. That was White, Alomar,
yeah, Devon White. Yes.
Devo leading it all off. And in the second go around, in the 93,
Ricky Henderson, right?
Right out loud.
The best leadoff hitter ever, maybe?
Holy cow. But to your point, Tom, that's exactly correct. If they didn't ambush you in that first inning with those 5 batters, no problem. When it came back around, they were going to get you. And you say, felt like those teams were never out of a game. That 15-14 World Series game against Philly is one of the great games in the history of baseball. And they were down like 11-3 or something like that in that game. They came back and won that game in the World Damn Series. The Joe Carter touch-em-all home run, for crying out loud. That's a come-from-behind victory. They were down multiple runs. Again, never out of it. Very, very similar. Now, it's interesting you're making that comparison because the Carter, Olerud, so many guys, Winfield came up with huge hits, key important hits. So that, I talk about Springer, talk about the bottom of the lineup. All of this is going to fall by the wayside if Bo Bichette and Slim Daddy Vladdy fall flat on their face in this series. So let's understand that. It's going to need to be similar to the top of that Jays lineup from back in the day where it was timely, important hits.
Your pick. Who's your World Series right now? Way too early. We haven't even started the playoffs. Pick in the World Series.
Boy, man, I don't even have a good answer for you here, Fluent, because everyone's just handing the Dodgers the National League. I could see the Braves being legit. The Dodgers have a real problem with their closer. Craig Kimbrell is as shaky as it gets. That's how they're susceptible. Especially you look at a first round series. Again, best of 3, or sorry, no, they get the bye. Never mind. They'll never. No, that doesn't happen anyway. But yeah, because the top 2 seeds get a bye in this first round that we're doing right now. Yeah. So, but the Dodgers and the Braves, I do think it'll be one of those 2 teams in the American League. I mean, I hate to be just boring here, Fluent, but I mean, at the risk of trying to give an accurate answer, it's got to be either Houston or New York. And again, I think the only team that has the opportunity to run that gauntlet would be the Blue Jays because they've just got that lineup. That's so many guys. What's the American League going to do if Teo just catches fire? What's the American League going to do if Matt Chapman hitting in the 5 spot just catches fire? Like there's so many guys in this Blue Jay lineup that can, especially early on in a 3-game series, especially then. But once you get into that Houston-New York series, in that middle series, whether it's Houston, what I love there is hopefully you catch Houston or New York looking past you to their series coming up against Houston or New York. Maybe you can sneak a quick game early, deliver that punch in the mouth early in that second round. So many things have to go right for the Blue Jays. Don't get me wrong on that. But if there is a team, and this is not my Toronto Blue Jay hat on here, Fluent. This is my baseball analyzing ball hat. Truly, if there is a team that can surprise and run this table, it is the Blue Jays. But the boring answer is either Houston, New York, either Atlanta or the Dodgers.
All right. I'm gonna go with the boring answer. I'm gonna go Dodgers, Yankees.
There you go. Okay.
And my former stomping ground in LA, the Dodgers win the World Series finally. Right? Finally? It's been a while. I don't even know. When was the last time the Dodgers won the World Series?
Oh, recently. They
won it recently, right? Okay. Yeah. It hasn't been too long. All right, fine. Still, it's the Dodgers. Let's go with the Dodgers. We're gonna shift gears. We're gonna shift gears a little bit. I told you that's why I bring him on for baseball. I don't know what. So you've been commenting a little bit on some things you've seen on one of my other shows about basketball. So let's dive in a little bit. Which of all these takes is the one you disagree with the most? And let's have it out a little bit. Was it the one where former NBA player Steve DeHare said, Jordan would average like 50 points a game and he's the GOAT? Is it there's no such thing as super teams? Like, of all the KD isn't a superstar, of all the things I've said, which one do you disagree with the most?
Oh, Tom, the only times I ever disagree with you is last year you tried to jump on Rob Pelinka as a Laker fanboy. Did not enjoy that, did not appreciate that, did not find that accurate at all. The idea of bringing in Russell Westbrook, the idea of having someone do the heavy lifting when LeBron goes to sit, that makes all the sense in the world. So I didn't agree with you there.
No, okay. I'm also a Laker fan. I don't know if you know that. I was on Rob Pelinka because I really didn't like that move.
And they still may make up for it because they still may end up bringing in Buddy Hield. But anyway, with the takes you're talking about, no, I agree with so many of the takes you have, Fluent. Any take that has Michael Jordan, that continues the revisionist history of Michael Jordan, any take that has Michael Jordan as the GOAT, hard no. Absolutely not. Zero evidence to support it. Absolutely not. Michael Jordan scoring 50 in this era is just such the words I used, absurd ramblings. And it wasn't your absurd ramblings, sports fan at all. You seem to agree with it. It was DeHare's, but no, absolutely ridiculous.
I don't. Here's the thing: the any player going into any different era and averaging 50, I think is a stretch. Mm-hmm. I didn't disagree with him because, could Jordan, if his only goal was to score 50, could he do that? Sure. They wouldn't win, but he could go and drop 50 anytime he wanted to. That part I agree with. So let's stick to the bigger one. So Jordan's not the GOAT. What do you mean there's no evidence to show that Jordan is the GOAT?
What evidence is there that exists that truly show there's never been an athlete in sports history with the revisionist history that Michael Jordan has? I believe you have children, Anthony. I believe you have children. Your children, at some point when they're our age, they're going to be sitting around with their friends and they're going to be saying, I'm telling you, we can find the footage. I'm telling you, my dad used to sit around with his friends. Yes, they used to include Michael Jordan in this. Yes, I'm telling you. And they will go back and look at it. As social media, all the revisionist history crap, all the total false narratives about Jordan are being blown up. That's just going to continue.
So give me some of the false ones. Let's give me some of the false ones. Is he the all-time leader in points per game?
So I don't know. Is 30.1, is that the all-time leader?
That is the all-time leader. Is the all-time leader in points per game in the playoffs? He is.
One of the huge ones. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Is he and his team made it to the final 6 times in 8 years and they won all 6? Yep. Is he one of only 2 players to record 200 steals and 100 blocks in a season? That's only been done 3 times, twice by him. Yep. Is he one of only maybe 2 or 3 players to ever win the MVP, the scoring title, and Defensive Player of the Year? Yep. So where does the falseness come in?
Well, that took place in definite expansion eras. You're asking me to be impressed with somebody who was guarded multiple times by Danny Ainge, Craig Elo, Reggie, John Stark. So I'm not overly impressed with that. And I don't think that Michael Jordan is some sort of bum, but I just don't think there's any evidence. When you look at that 1-9 record, you said 6 championships in the 8 years. That's fine and dandy, Fluent, but we know full well double that. That's his career length. What about all the other years? This is what I talk about the revisionist history. Michael Jordan fans don't want us bringing up the Washington Wizard debacle at all.
Oh,
As if it
was it a debacle?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Jerry Stackhouse will set us straight on that. It was a debacle. Yes.
So
Zero.
a guy comes in at 30, 38, 39, 40 years old for a team that he owns that can't sell any tickets so that they can sell some tickets, takes $1 million, donates it entirely to charity, and is a top 10 player in the league at 39 years old. How is that a debacle?
I thought it was an absolute debacle. I thought it was all about him. I like the idea of selling the tickets from an ownership standpoint. That I like a lot. I didn't think he played good ball there. It definitely didn't contribute to any sort of winning. I didn't think anybody developed on his watch in Washington or Chicago. You look at when he left that team after that first repeat, they're horrible officiating call in Game 7, Anthony, from going right back to the NBA Finals.
That is a bold-faced lie. And I'll tell you, one, Washington was the worst franchise, worst roster in the league. And there's no offense, a 39-year-old is not going to carry the worst roster in the league. Although when he did play, you saw that they were starting to become one of the top defensive teams in the league, and then he got hurt. When you go back and say no one was developed, Scottie Pippen 1,000,000% became a better player because of Michael Jordan pushing him. And two, and this is the one that's absolutely false, that one phantom call was not in Game 7. That call was in Game 5 in round 2. Game 5 of round 2. They still went 7 games and lost that series. They still had 2 more chances to win, and then they still would have had to beat another team before getting to the finals. On top of that, that team that won 55 games the following year brought back every single player from a three-peat championship team. So they had that winning, that pedigree, brought everybody back, but also added Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, and Luke Longley. And yes, they won 55 games. That's great. They still got knocked out in the second round. So to suggest that, no other player has left a team in such great shape. But I'll give you an example because you have the banner sitting next to you. The Toronto Raptors won the NBA championship. Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green left. Their absolute best player and a starter. Their winning percentage the next year, higher. Does that make that team, or does that take away from Kawhi Leonard's greatness? Absolutely not. Because even though they won more games, higher percentage, because it was shortened seasons, but had a higher winning percentage, it didn't make them a better team. They just won a lot of games. There's that championship pedigree. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say I think a lot of the revisionist history is that people try to create this negative towards him that isn't true. Pippen wouldn't be the same player if he didn't get pushed. He was not tough. He was as Kobe would have said, Charmin soft. And it was Jordan that pushed him to be the Knicks knew that, the Pistons, knew that. They said he was soft until one time he wasn't anymore. And he before he went crazy, Pippen told you, and that was because of Jordan. Then he went crazy and changed his mind on everything. The 1-9 thing I think is interesting because people think it's 1-9 in series. It's 1-9 in games. So he won one game against the Bucks, who were the number 2 seed on a horrible team that didn't even win 40 games. Let's keep in mind, Jordan came to a team his rookie year that was being outsold. The indoor Chicago soccer team was getting more people into Chicago Stadium than the Bulls were. That's how bad the Bulls were. That's how bad the Bulls team, right, that got him. So he goes in, it's his rookie season. They're the 7th seed. They don't even win 40 games. It's not a good team. Look at his second best player, Orlando Woodridge. Yep, he scored 20 points a game. That's about it. He didn't play any defense. He probably just sat there under the basket. He never played a lick of defense. And that was his second best player. So that was, and also his rookie season, they lose to a much better team. The next 2 years, they get swept by the Boston Celtics, an all-time great team with 5 Hall of Famers on it, and the best player in the league in Larry Bird. So to get swept by them, it'd be like saying, I don't hold this against LeBron as an example, when he got swept in the finals by the Spurs in 2007 or got swept by the Warriors. I don't hold that against him. He went up against a far superior team. Well, for Jordan, it was a season where he only played 17 games and lost to the best team in the league. And then year 3, still, when does he start winning? Once they start putting some pieces around him, right? And it takes Pippen and Horace Grant get drafted or traded for on draft day in year 4. He's also gone through 4 coaches at that point. So to hold that 1-9 in those first 3 years against him, that would be like me, and I never do this, say, well, in 4 NBA championships, do you know that LeBron went 2-16? in 4 out of his 10 appearances. So yeah, go ahead. So while he leaves, I'll fill you in on what's next up on the agenda. Oh, you're back. Okay. I didn't know how long you were going to be. I was going to go into a whole little monologue. So I think there's, I'm okay with any combination of Jordan, LeBron, Kareem being your top 3 players. I'm okay with any combination of those 3 in any order. But to say he has absolutely no case for it, I need to hear more.
Well, you're spitting fire. I totally, and what I love here, Fluent, is you're being fair. That's part of why I think it's almost ingrown.
I try to be fair. I try to be. You know why I think I'm fair? He's not my favorite player. This guy is. I don't know if you can see that guy right there. My favorite player went from Magic. That's who got me into basketball, and then Kobe, because that's when I got out of it. When I got hurt and couldn't play anymore. Kobe. That was the year Kobe was drafted. I traded to the Lakers, and so I've been a Laker fan since birth, basically. So I grew up watching Magic. He was my favorite player, and then 20 years of Kobe, I'm like, I shifted. So now Magic's 2. So I think I'm a little more fair with Jordan, although not everyone believes me. It's because I'm not like that. Jordan was, walked on water. No, he had bad performances. He had bad series. He did dumb stuff. 100%. Everybody does.
Yeah, and again, you're being very. You blew my mind on that one, because that is the reason I'm a Laker fan. Irvin Magic Johnson. That's why I always say Magic brought me to the Lakers, and then the Lakers brought me to basketball. Because when we were growing up,
yes, 100%.
The game you watched when we were growing up was whatever game NBC told you was the game of the week. That was it. So whoever, it wasn't like it is now. But now, so we got force fed a lot of Lakers Celtics. Now, of course, you hate the Celtics. But man, there's a certain point, and I could take you to the seat I was at, and I could take you to the couch I was sitting at. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. This was eons ago, where I remember it was that game where Magic hit the running the
little baby hook. Yeah.
And right there, I'm just, I'm so euphoric. And after it all calms down, I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like, damn, I just got to admit, I kind of like the Celtics. They showed there was a different way to play basketball, right?
See, I was different. I was with you, because it was all I saw was Lakers and Celtics, and I had to pick a team. And this is going to sound so fun, so crazy. I hate green. I don't like the color green, except money. So I went, I'm going Lakers. And they're like, why? I go, I don't like green. And then I watched Magic play, and I went, oh, I want to be him. I started doing a behind the back pass before I could do a bounce pass. Imagine a little no looker at 10 years old. It was definitely, it was Magic for me. So I became a Laker, hate the Celtics. Like, I even have Bird out of my top 5 only because he's a Celtic. Oh. Yeah, only because he's a Celtic. Yeah. I have three Lakers in my top 5. So
beautiful. Now, what about this now? What about Irvin Magic Johnson? For me, how is he not in the GOAT conversation more? Because he's the only person I can think of who would have gone to the Hall of Fame at any of the 5 positions. You're a podcaster right now, Anthony. You're doing a podcast right now. If I were saying, oh boy, Fluent, I just love your podcast. I just think you're knocking out the park. And you were just saying to me, can I tell you something? Can I tell you who's an amazing podcaster? This person X. I said, why is that? Well, there's 5 aspects of podcasting, and person X is Hall of Fame level at any of these. You would be pointing to that person as the best podcaster. So A, I don't understand why Magic doesn't get more run in this conversation, A, and B, 3 levels of basketball: high school, college, pro. Has there ever been a better high schooler than Kareem? Has there ever been a better college player than Kareem? And as good as there's ever been, including creating the only indefensible offensive shot in sports history. So that's part of what I'm talking about here, Fluent. I don't believe Michael Jordan ever passed Kareem. So I don't believe there was ever a time where he was the actual true GOAT.
So interesting that you said that, because if you include high school and college, I agree with you. I've actually said Kareem, and it's not close. Right? Kareem, 3 high school championships. Couldn't play varsity in his first year as a freshman, right? So three high school championships in New York, one of the toughest places to play. Then he goes to UCLA, 3 years. They only lose 2 games. They go, I think, 31-0, and then I think 29-1, 29-1, something like that. Maybe 30-0, 29-1. Wins 3 NCAA championships, and then comes to the NBA and wins 6 championships. 6 MVPs, 2 Finals MVPs, the all-time leading scorer. I'm with you if you're including. But when we talk just NBA, that's where it changes for me. But yes, in basketball history, life, then yeah, I'm with you. Actually, I do have, and that's why I have Kareem 3, and that's why I have Magic actually just outside of those 3. Like my 5 go Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Magic, Kobe, and then Bird, and then the rest. I think those 5, 6, I think, are most people's in most people's 5, 6. Magic is out, I think, because of his early retirement, right? Like he made what? He 5 NBA finals, he wins at a 9 in what 13 seasons. Like that's just crazy. But because of him being diagnosed HIV positive and having to drop out, because people forget when he made that 91 final against the Bulls, he had just won the MVP the year before. It's not like he was bad. So I think we got robbed of 3 or 4 years of Magic that I think would have kept him in that conversation.
And that's part of the revisionist history. You've been totally fair, so I feel the need to be totally fair as well. That's part of the revisionist history that works against Jordan. Is people keep telling me, well, that '91 Laker team, everybody was just washed up. It was this and that. Man, it was still a very competitive team, and you still had Sleepy Perkins performing like it was still a legitimate team.
So I think because they didn't have Kareem anymore, people just thought, okay, this team's horrible. But listen, I'm not comparing Eldon Campbell to Kareem, but he was still like a. I love like still like it was still they made it to the NBA final, like they weren't a horrible team. But anyways, I digress. All right.
Let me ask this here because again, as I say, you've been very fair, so I'm wondering where you'll go with this. A big issue I have, and again, I feel like I get my back up in these. Often people do, right? And especially with the revisionist history that's just driven me crazy over the years. But you say you've got Jordan 1, Bron 2nd. My issue, Fluent, and you know this, is so many people that have that ranking, it's set in stone, the ink is dried. That I can't agree with at all. Here then, if no one else can ever, what are we doing here? So what could or what do you need to see from Bron then? So you're sitting like Shaq the other day on I think it was the Nelk Boys or something like that. He said, listen, if he passes Kareem, nighty night, convo over. What has to happen for you?
I think if Bron were to lead, and this is a bit of a homer in me, if Bron were to take my Lakers to another NBA championship and win and be the best player on that team, it'd be hard not to put him there because when you look at, you have to look at, I factor in everything. So I factor in accolades, and that part is tough because, and that's not first, but I'm just saying it first to get it out of the way. Accolades where Jordan has a Hall of Famer career separating him and LeBron. But I do look at accolades. I look at stats per game, but I also look at longevity and longevity prime. So the reason he's 2, and just so you know, I actually don't even rank active players. He's my exception because I'm like, until you're done, I'm not putting you into a top whatever because I look at Dwight Howard. If you look at Dwight Howard's first 5 years, we all thought he was going to be the greatest center ever. Now he didn't. Now I think he got robbed, but now he's not even in the top 75 ever, right? Whereas first 5 years, you would have had him in there. So that's why I like to wait. But LeBron has done enough, 19, 20 years in, of course. So I think with the reason LeBron can move to 1 for me is because when he hits year 20, 22, right, he's going to have a 19 or 20 year prime. No one has had a peak that long where he's been like other than year 1. I think he hasn't averaged under 25 points a game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Like that's just insane. He's been to 10 NBA finals. Now people will knock him because he lost for them, but again, that part is team. So I try to pull out the team from whatever. So I think if he goes 20, 21 years and he's still there and he wins, so winning is more important to me than the scoring title. So I think if he goes, because for those that say, well, he's going to be the number 1 scorer of all time. Sure. But he's also going to have the number 1 field goal missed all time. He's also going to have the most turnovers of all time. So that's why I don't like the all-time stuff. If I went by all-time, John Stockton over Magic. He's got more all-time points, assists, everything except rebounds. Karl Malone. Like there's so many guys that I always use this one. Tony Parker has more all-time points than Steph Curry. Is he a better scorer than Steph Curry? Like it'd be crazy to say that, right? But he's going to get to a point where he's had so many long years of peak. So if he leads a team to another championship, I think he slides into 1 for me.
Awesome. Well,
he's not going to get the accolades, right? He's not going to get a defensive player of the year. He's not going to get those other things. So I think the accolades things is done. But I think if he's the finals MVP and like not a second guy, not AD's the finals MVP, and because that is part of the Lakers thing is if they go through AD, they're more successful. But I still think LeBron's the best player on that team. I think AD is the most important player on that team. And I have that. There's a distinction, right? So I think if LeBron leads his team, especially the Lakers, to an NBA championship and he's the finals MVP, I think I have no choice but to move him in there. And I'm not a fan, but as you can see, my son is, which is why that's there.
Right.
So, and it's not that I don't like
Oh,
LeBron. I see LeBron's faults, and they bother me.
boom. Now, Tone, Sports Fluent, this is part of the point as well. If Michael Jordan played in the social media era, it would be such a different, the revisionist history wouldn't have an opportunity to exist. So, how you're pointing out flaws under a microscope, Fluent, we don't hear people talking about Jordan getting coaches fired. We don't hear Jordan talking about.
Oh no, those aren't the faults. Those aren't. Those, I don't talk about those. I don't talk about those faults. I will say this though: if Jordan was in this era in social media, if we remember Jordan, he wouldn't have said anything. He probably wouldn't even be on it because you remember he was all about selling sneakers and business. I don't think he's on social media, but that's not my issue with LeBron. I don't have any personal issues with LeBron. I think LeBron's actually a great guy, for the little that I know about him. But my thing is that look, he's not a very good free throw shooter. He does turn the ball over a little too much. It's not about him getting coaches fired, but I think he refuses to play in a system. He needs to be the system, and I think it hurts his teams when he's not on the court. That's why his teams, once he leaves, granted, more 5 other people leave too, but when they leave, they always stink. It's because he leaves, 5 other people leave, and he was the system. So now no one knows what to do. When you see when he's off the court, everyone looks like I don't know what to do because it's I have the ball. I'll tell you what to do. And that shows his greatness, but I think it's also a flaw from a team perspective. And then let's be honest, that 2011 finals, like you can't just let that go. He was horrendous. And I think that's where there's a point though, like I said, there's a point where his longevity will make up for that kind of that failure because he's had so many successes in the finals. So that's my thing with him is I see those 3-4 faults that people just want to forget. Like even his fans will say he's number one. What about 2011? Oh, that didn't count. Why? Oh, because it was Dwayne Wade's team. What about 07? Oh, that didn't count because he was only in his 4th year. Okay, so anything he did wrong didn't count. What about 09 and 010? He was the number 1 seed in the NBA, didn't even make it to the NBA final. Oh, that doesn't count. Those other teams were good. Well, if we're just saying all the negatives don't count, then
we're back to the revisionist
part that, speaking of revisionist history, oh, it doesn't count because. No, if you have to give a caveat, then it does count.
In this whole there's one thing, Craig, you're trying to accomplish a lot here. You can only get the basketball gods, Craig. You can only get one thing. You can only accomplish one thing in the GOAT debate. What I would really love to change the narrative of how the finals losses. I was guilty of this myself, Fluent, forever. I did not mention that Magic Johnson, my guy, my hero, I never mentioned that he went to 9 finals because inevitably the follow-up question was going to be asked, how many did they win? 5. And I felt bad about that. And one day recently, too, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So wait a minute now. Since when is losing to Bird and the Celtics, anything to come down on? A, and B, my God, what about the amazing series with Houston? Like what about the wins? All the winning you did in the regular season, awesome, fun, and then all the winning you did in the postseason. Wait a minute, that was the name of the game. That was the goal. This is to be celebrated. So if I could change one thing, it's that the 6 for 6 is the be all end all.
Oh yeah, as you know, I never use that. That's because that's team. I can't. Yeah, I try. I don't use that other than to say in most people's top 10s, there's only 2 players that have losing records in the finals, and that's Wilt and LeBron. Those are the only 2. And so they do, because of that, both of them did, that's why they're there, had to do exceptional other things, which they have, right? That's why they're in the conversation. Anybody else Jerry West isn't there? Oh, that's because he's 1-7. But let me, I always ask people this and they go, who has the most 20-point games in the NBA Finals? Jerry West. Who has the most 30-point games in the NBA Finals? Jerry West. Who has the most 40-point games in the NBA Finals? Jerry West. It wasn't that he didn't do his job.
Yeah.
He did his job. So, all right, we're going to switch gears again and finally finish it off with football. I've got 5 games. 5 games. We're going to go through them. I'm going to tell you the teams, the spread, and we're going to make our picks. That's what we do on Crunching the Numbers. We're 45 minutes in. We're here with Craig Ballard, who you can find on Twitter at Craig Ballard77. You spell it just the way it sounds, right? Craig Ballard. That should be easy. It's not like my last name. That's why I say K. All right, we're going to start with my team, the Bears, going into Minnesota to play the Vikings. The Vikings are 7-point favorites. My Bears are 2-2, surprisingly. Vikings are 3-1. It's not a primetime game, right? It's at 1:00, so we don't have to worry about the Kirk Cousins curse.
opposite because Cousins is awesome at 1 p.m. So in fact, quite the opposite.
Yeah, he's fantastic at 1 p.m. He's coming off a nice game in London as well. So who do you got? Bears, Vikings. Vikings again, 7-point favorites.
Really like the Vikings here. I'm so sorry. Please don't hit the end button. Don't hang up on me here, Fluent. I know you're a Bears fan. Boy, I'm just way down. I'm as down on the Chicago Bears as I am on any team in football. The coaching changes that they've brought in, everything is still going backwards. There's been zero development from Justin Fields. I've not liked anything I've seen on the Chicago Bears team. On the other side of the coin, we haven't exactly seen the Minnesota Vikings, same idea, regime change. We haven't exactly seen them catch fire, but there were definitely some good things in this past weekend game in London, yes. And overall, I do think that they're going to move the needle this season. I think Minnesota is one of the teams that not a lot of people are talking about that is going to be a division winner, is going to be one of the top seeds. I could see them winning upwards of 11, 12 games this season. I think they can take steps forward. I think they're 3-1 right now, and they've not even come close to playing their best football. So sorry to say, Sports Fluent, but I really like Minnesota here.
Yeah. So listen, the Bears have done one thing okay. They've ran the ball better than expected this year. So I'll give them credit for that. But when I look across the field, I see a team that's better on defense. They're better on offense. They're better at running the ball. They're better at throwing the ball. They're literally better at better at special teams. It's a divisional game. So this the best I can do as a fan is say, I'll take the Bears with the points, although I think Minnesota wins the game. I think they keep it within that 7. If I take my Bears hat off, if I block it for a minute, it's probably Vikings by 10 for anybody betting. Okay. But I can't say that. I'm going to take the Bears with the points. See, I'm realistic.
Well, we can't. That's a huge point. We can't just let the division run.
The division games are always closer, right?
Always. Even in the 90s when the Bills were going to the Super Bowl every year and Dan Marino and the Dolphins were man, we always gave the Bills everything. Everyone else you prepare for once every 4 years. Your division rivals you prepare for twice every single season. You've got to beat on them. So 7 for a division game. Don't get me wrong, Anthony. That did jump out at me. A full touchdown that did jump out for me. The way these two teams are playing, that's why I'm going with Minnesota. But I love the point about the division rivalry.
And shout out to Adam Thielen. Feel free to have a great game. I'm starting you in fantasy this week. Pittsburgh has made no surprise, has made a quarterback change. Speaking of the Bears, of their former quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, is now going to be holding the clipboard for rookie Kenny Pickett. The Steelers are 1-3. I, just so you know, said that the Steelers will not. This will be Mike Tomlin's first year finishing below 500. They come into Buffalo. Buffalo, our local team as Canadians, I'd like to say. Buffalo winning their first game in the Josh Allen era, 1 possession. Previous to last week, they were 0-7 in 1 possession games. They finally got one. So they come into Buffalo, but Buffalo are 14-point favorites against the Steelers. Does this offense just click again and blow them out? Or are you taking Steelers with the points?
Always have. The one time in my entire life where I've taken a favorite at this level was when the Patriots were going for that perfect season. I think they were like 12.5-point favorite, something like that, against the Giants in the Super Bowl. How'd that turn out for me? Yeah. Just from a value, when you talk about crunching numbers, for me, I'm always going to be led by the value. So the value here is through the roof for Pittsburgh. I'm not any happier about a lot of the things going on in Pittsburgh than you or the actual Pittsburgh Steelers are. I even wondered if they wait for Pickett here, because the beginning of their schedule is there's no place in there that's, okay, now here's an ideal time for someone to make the rookie debut. They were playing good defenses, and man, is that ever the case this Sunday. This Buffalo Bill pass rush, this defense is very real. They have a defensive-minded head coach, so there's no surprise there. And we know what Allen and that offense could do. Anytime it's a 14-point spread, though, there's me, Ma, leaving that back door open for us to come on in the back door, Fluid. I could totally see something like that happen. And, of course, anytime you have a 14-point spread, my God, all I want is 7-0. All I want is even 3-0. 3-0. I'll even take that, and then I'm off to the races. So, no, I don't, especially with the spotlight on injuries right now in the NFL. Like, I could really see Buffalo taking the pedal off the metal at some point, putting in some subs, because I do think they will dominate this game. I really do. I just don't think they're going to end up covering. And truth be told, I don't think they could care less about covering. A week ago from right now, they were behind the Miami Dolphins, and literally technically still are, because the Dolphins, whatever. But I think they're just focused on getting that win, getting back to what they consider to be the rightful perch as the new, beasts of the AFC East. I think they'll be all about winning. I don't think they care. There's some teams, Fluent, the Bills have this team scheduled. They're going to beat this team by 35 points. I don't think that this is the case here. I would.
So you got Pittsburgh with the points.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go with my Super Bowl pick, the Buffalo Bills. I have the game 35-10, and it has more to do with the Pittsburgh's inability to score. I really like Najee Harris, but that's about it. Their defense is good, which is why I'm thinking even 35. Like if it wasn't the Pittsburgh defense, I'd be like, they're coming to send a message. They're going to drop 40 on you. But I have 35-10, which when I do the math is 25 points. So I got the Bills covering 35-10. Dolphin, your team, Miami Dolphins, minus, unfortunately, to a, can you say his last name?
Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa? Did I say? I feel like I never say it right. Tagovailoa. Maybe I did. All right. When I hear someone else say it, I think I have a better chance. Okay. Dolphins 3-point road favorites without Tua, going into play the surprisingly 2-2 Jets. Miami, can they get it done with Teddy Two Gloves?
Boy, I'm so nervous about this one. I really am. I mean, ultimate, if I was betting this game, what I would truly do is buy the half a point to put it up to Jets plus 3.5. And you talk about crunching the numbers, Fluent. Those 3, 4, and 7 are huge numbers in football. The vast majority of games land finish, and it makes sense, right? 3 is the field goal. 4 is one team with an extra touchdown compared to the field goal. Makes sense. So I would definitely recommend buying that hook to get it to 3.5, and I would take the Jets. I absolutely hate to see it, to say it. I mean, this is a real test for the Dolphins. Part of the not allure, but part of the real success the Dolphins seem to have had in the offseason was they seem to have hit a home run with the Mike McDaniel addition. Well, for the first time now, we've seen in-game adversity, that Baltimore huge comeback. We've seen a lot of in-game adversity having to hold the Bills, but we haven't seen week-to-week adversity where they're coming off a loss, need to right the ship, and what a loss they're coming off of, Fluent. One of the worst scenes we've ever seen in sports history with Tua with that knockout there. So this is such a different animal. This is nothing like Mike McDaniel would have ever seen before or coached to before. So that's their side. And then on the other side, the Jets, inexplicably, I'm no happier about this than anybody. They're playing well, and they've got Zach Wilson playing well, and Wilson seems to have learned under Joe Flacco. So I'm really nervous. And if you're the Jets, you have Robert Saleh, their coach, at the beginning of the year saying, hey, I'm taking notes on everyone who was doubting us. They feel that they're much better than people think they are.
Us against the world mentality, right?
And 2-3 is very, very pedestrian. 3-2, if the Jets go to 3-2, now be in second place in the AFC East on a winning streak as well, they could really show people, hey, we told you we're much better than people think we are. So I think they're really, you talk about having a game circled and focused, man. I think Miami's going to get the Jets' best shot. Now, Teddy Two Gloves, it shouldn't be something he hasn't seen before. He's a veteran in this league. But me personally, I really think there is a drop off in play. So that's why I go back to Mike McDaniel. Even if there's a drop off in play, if McDaniel can scheme these guys open, now you're talking about scheming Tyreek Hill open. Now you're talking about scheming Jalen Waddle open. I mean, yes, please, and yes, please. Gasecki, one of the fastest tight ends there is. Mostert, one of the fastest running backs. So McDaniel, that's why I'm looking at you, Mike McDaniel, on this.
They got some speed there.
You're the difference maker in this game, Mike McDaniel. Tua's not going to be able to make plays. I don't think the quarterback's going to be able to make plays to save bacon here. Zach Wilson will be able to make plays to save New York's bacon. I don't see it for Miami. So I'm all about Mike McDaniel in this game, but ultimately I have to take the Jets. I can't believe it, but
okay. We got Jets plus 3, taking the Jets. Do you think, I'm going to get to my pick in a second. Do you think they should have let Tua rest with that quick turnaround from his concussion / back injury to the Thursday nighter?
The only thing the best thing I've seen said on this is when Mike McDaniel said, so he goes out with that injury in the Buffalo game. All the doctors tell me he's cleared to come back in. Then the Sunday he gets reevaluated again. Doctors, including independents, say he's good to go. Monday, evaluated doctors, good to go. Tuesday, evaluated by doctors, good to go. Wednesday, evaluated by doctors, good to go. I've got a whole sea of thumbs up from doctors and professionals. If I'm not going to go with a whole sea of thumbs up from professionals, what am I going to do? What are we even doing here? So from that I understand it. So for me, it leads to a bigger convo, right? Fluent of, hey, so Miami followed the protocols. Okay, that may be one thing. Do we need to deep dive the protocols? Maybe that's more.
Well, that's what they're doing now. For me, I look at it like this, and it's easy to in hindsight, and when you're not the one having to make the decision, I'm like, hey, my franchise quarterback is hurt. He's hurt. Whether he's good to play or not, and people play hurt all the time, but he's hurt. You know what? It's week 4 of a 17 now game schedule on a short turnaround. I'm okay. Even if we go 3-1, hey, let's get him rehab. Let's get him 100%. Even if he's 90, 85, hey, let me get him to 100 for the next week. I get it. You want him to play every week. So I'm torn too, because I'm like, it's easy now to say, well, if he wasn't hurt, could he have avoided that? Or if he wasn't there, obviously he wouldn't have been playing. But here we go.
Is such an example, Fluent, because of all the people it happened to, he's the one that you're not going to get a straight story from him. He's ridiculed in the media left, right, and center. But is he the guy? So he is not going to take himself out.
Like, he won't take him. No, he wouldn't take himself out. No, but like I'm saying, I know his history. This is his first healthy season. And so for me, I played a little bit cautious because I do look at the long game. Coaches, unfortunately, hey, they got to win or they're fired. So I get, when, again, like you said, when the sea of doctors are saying he's good, hey, let's go win a game. All right. I'm also going to go with the Jets, Jets. For all the points that you said, I do not have a lot of faith in Teddy Two Gloves. Although if you can get Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Gesicki, I'm going to forget Mostert. If you can get them the ball in space, they're going to make plays because they are so fast. So look, it's going to be, but again, divisional game. I think it's going to be close. So I'm going to take the team with the home team with the points. Why not? Who do we got next? This is a good one too. The surprisingly good. I feel like you had this hair before your hair was gone. Cooper Rush. And the Dallas Cowboys go into LA to play the Rams. The Rams just got spanked by the 49ers on Monday night. But Rams are 4.5-point favorites at home to, again, a surprisingly 3-1. We thought Dallas was done when Dak was done, but if Dallas wins this game, and I'll get your pick, we might have a huge quarterback controversy. What you got?
For me, this is a tale of two teams going in completely different directions because I've loved a huge part of the Rams' issues right now is they have massive injuries on that offensive line. And for me, I haven't seen them game plan their way to help with that. The other side of the coin, Dallas has huge issues. Their franchise quarterback is out. Well, we have seen them game plan very well for Cooper Rush. So for me, it's a coach and a team that has good momentum. I think it might surprise you. You had before, who's got the most 20 points in the final? No one knows it's Jerry West. Well, over the last 2 seasons, who's the best coach against the spread? And it's by a mile. It's out there in Dallas. It's out there in Dallas, believe it or not, and it's by an absolute mile. A lot of people don't like him as a head coach, but it's by a mile. So and again, we talk about those key numbers in football. This pass is 4.5. I don't even have to buy a point. This pass is one of those key numbers. I would definitely take Dallas. I am taking Dallas. If I need to have more faith that the Rams are going to be able to figure out the issues that they're having with that offensive line. We talked about in Miami, one thing they can do is get the ball out quick to these guys. I don't know that the Rams are really set up that way. As what we're seeing here that I don't think that I personally didn't see coming, Fluent, is how much the Rams are missing OBJ. I personally didn't see that coming because I think I had more faith in game plan around that. But they are unrecognizable on offense right now. I would definitely be riding the hot hand. I would definitely take the Dallas Cowboys plus 4.5.
So it's interesting that you said they're missing OBJ because my take on it is actually that they're missing Andrew Whitworth. Because that offensive line, if they don't have the time, this is the problem. They're not getting the ball to Allen Robinson. Why aren't they getting the ball to Allen Robinson? Well, they're sending him on deep routes. They need time to do that. And Stafford is running for his life. Now, I said this last year, before and after, said, was this just Stafford like having a good year with everything being perfect, right? He had Cooper Kupp with a triple crown. He had an offensive line that was protecting him. They brought in OBJ, who looked fantastic. Although they didn't have a run game, they also had a phenomenal defense. So he just kind of, or was this the Matthew Stafford that we really had? We just didn't see it in Detroit. And I kept saying, I think we're overrating Matthew Stafford. He still, last year, people forget, still led the league in interceptions. So he's still with great protection and the best wide receiver that year in football in Cooper Kupp. He still led the league in interceptions. Now,
not only did he lead the league in interceptions, but let's keep it real here. He handed that game away, that NFC Championship game, to San Fran. He gave them the game winning interception. He dropped it, by the way.
They just didn't take it. Yeah, absolutely. Great point. So I think this is who Matthew Stafford is. He has been brought up, whether it was the team he was on or himself, on a team that was, hey, we put up numbers, but we just don't win. And I think you're seeing it now where he doesn't have time to throw. and he's getting knocked all over the place. And again, he's leading the league in it, shockingly leading the league in interceptions. And that's why you're saying, look, Cooper Kupp's gonna have another great year because that's the only person he has to, dump it off to quickly. They still don't have a running game. We thought Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson would do something. That's not happening. And the defense hasn't been the defense, right? They're still good, but they're not shutting people down. So I see this Rams team and I got this Dallas team who's playing great football coming into LA with 4.5 points. I'm going to take Dallas with 4.5 points. Why wouldn't I? And I'm one of the ones that doesn't like Mike McCarthy as a head coach, didn't like the hire, but he seems to do better. It's interesting when he doesn't have his, Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott. When they're out, he seems to coach better. So I don't know what that is, a coincidence or some weird dynamic, but I'm with you. I'm going to take Dallas plus 4.5 in LA. LA's got to figure it out.
Well, on Fluent, just real quick here, that Dallas front seven, that pass rush, that is not the cure for what else a struggle.
Oh no, I was going to mention that too. Especially, I'm just seeing Micah Parsons just blow through that line, and Matthew Stafford fits among with the other guys too, but him specifically, he's one of the best defensive players in football. Period, regardless of position, he's going to make his life miserable. Absolutely, yeah. Surprisingly, I thought they were going to do better. Not going to lie. The Las Vegas Raiders, problem, too much time in Las Vegas, I think. 1-3, Monday night, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, who we all just forgot about the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, Tyreek Hill left. He went to Miami. They stink. No, they're actually still pretty good. They still have a pretty good coach. They still have a pretty good quarterback. You might have heard of him, Patrick Mahomes. The Raiders go in as 7-point underdogs. So the Chiefs are favored by 7 in Kansas City on a Monday night. If you've ever been to Arrowhead Stadium, you will, as I have, you will not be able to hear yourself think. So what are your thoughts on this last final game that we're picking?
Oh, I mean, my gosh, where do you go with this one? I totally agreed. I've been wondering lately. I agree because I also thought the Raiders would be significantly better. Lately, I've been wondering. They had so much success with that interim coach last season, and then didn't pull the trigger on that. And we've seen Josh McDaniels as a head coach in the past, and he's been as bad as it gets. We hoped, I guess, that he had learned from that, but so far, I don't know how you can like what you've seen in Vegas. Kansas City, man, Andy Reid, just incredible, absolutely incredible. So you lose your Jaguar, you lose your Porsche, your speed weapon. They collected that wide receiver cupboard, in Kansas City is not bare. They've now, instead of being so top heavy, they've got a lot of guys in there. We're seeing Reid and the Chiefs go to multiple tight end packages left, right, and center because he just knows in this day and age, everyone's trying to stop the pass. Well, we're going to have some good runs in there. That's going to help set up our pass. You've got all this great strategy going on by Andy Reid. And at the end of the day, so you're going to have so many plays that work because Reid is such a genius. Then at the end of the day, what about the plays that just don't work, that broke down or were defensed properly? My God, you've got Steph Curry out there. You've got a.k.a. Patrick Mahomes doing his thing. So I think
you're talking about that 360 weird kind of shot put to another one of my fantasy guys, Clyde's Edward-Helaire in the back of the end zone. Like, what a great play. And I, my fear was without Tyreek Hill, right? Are they going to have the deep ball, or are they going to have that where he can just bail out to, like a bubble screen to Hill and he turns it into a 60-yard touchdown? Now they're not doing that anymore. Clearly, they don't have that deep threat. But now listen, let's be honest. Travis Kelce's a wide receiver. He's just a very, very big wide receiver. So now you've got Kelce, Juju, Hardman, as I mentioned, Hillier. You got even the rookie Pacheco. You don't know where they're going. Oh, did I mention Valdez-Scantling? Like, there's so many packages and schemes that now it's actually harder to defend. Versus, hey, you know what? I got linebacker on Kelce, and let's safety help on Tyreek Hill. We've seen them take him out. Not very often, but we've seen them where they could take those guys out. You can't do that anymore because now Mahomes really looks like he's learning to really utilize all of his weapons. I'm sorry, I don't know if you made your pick.
Yeah, I'm saying, I mean, it's just a coin toss because, again, it goes back to your points about being a division game, and 7 is such a high number. For me, I could see Kansas City coming into this game saying, listen, if all the talk coming into this season was how good our division was going to be, we've got a chance right away. It's the first week in October. We've got a chance to eliminate somebody right now. Like, we've got a chance to get the Raiders out of here. Everyone talking about how good the AFC is. We've got a chance to get one team out and further reestablish ourselves as the beasts of the AFC. Never mind the run Cincinnati went on last season. Never mind how good the Bills are. As you said, Tone, Have people forgotten about us? Because we're here and we're real. And pay attention. Watch the game. Look how we're winning now. You said we couldn't win this game. We're shoving it down your throats. You said we couldn't win this way. We are winning this way. So I actually, man, I will go with Kansas City. I could see them looking to having this game circled, looking to really put a stamp on this. The last several times, or several of the last times anyway, that we've seen Kansas City on a big stage like this, they've totally jackassed the second half and lost these games, Super Bowl playoff games, things like that. So I think we'll see it fully focused. We talked about Buffalo. Could we see Buffalo? Could we see Meemaw leave that back door open in the Buffalo game? Could Buffalo take that foot off the pedal? I'll bet you Kansas City is full throttle this entire game, and I bet you that they do cover this spread.
And I am with you. I'm going to take the Chiefs in a big win, a big divisional matchup, and a statement game on Monday night. I'm Anthony K. He's Craig Ballard, or on Twitter at Craig Ballard 77. And now you're more fluent.